Hey fam, it's Bloom Daddy, and in this video, I'm going to teach you how to utilize sphagnum moss as the perfect growing medium for your houseplants. We want to make sure the moss moisture levels are just right for our plants. So let's review the 4 different types of moisture levels you will typically find moss in. This is dehydrated moss with 0 moisture, where you typically find it in stores on the shelves. This is the equivalent of really dry soil that needs water. Moisture level 2 is what I call rehydrated moss, where it has enough water in it to make it usable and ready for planting. As you can see when I squeeze this moss, there is not a lot of water coming out of it. Similar to a bag of soil when you buy at the store, how it has just enough to be ready for planting. Moisture level 3 is what I call wet moss, and this is how your moss should look after you give it its first watering after planting. You can see it's a little bit darker than the rehydrated moss, yet it's not as dark and soaked as the soaked moss, which we'll get to in level 4. This is the ideal medium and water level for your plants. Now to moisture level 4, this is soaked moss. This is what your moss looks like after you try to rehydrate dehydrated moss. It becomes soaked, and you need to squeeze the water out of it in order to make it wet or rehydrated. Quick recap on the moisture levels: level 1, dehydrated; level 2, rehydrated; level 3, wet; level 4, soaked. For growing, you want your moss to fluctuate between the rehydrated state and the wet state, which I'll show you how to do in a second. The moisture range from rehydrated to wet is really important to understand so you don't kill your plants. Watch closely when I squeeze the moisture out of the wet moss so you can use this whole video as a really good gauge to understanding the moisture levels of your moss at home. That is all, fam, for the moisture level section of this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I have yet to see another YouTube video go into moisture levels like I just did, so I would love to get your feedback on how I did in the comments below after watching. I'm going to turn on the music now, and for the next 2 minutes, you'll see how I plant 2 different types of plants in sphagnum moss. At the end of these 2 minutes, I'm going to show you how to water plants that have already been growing in sphagnum moss to make sure you get it to the right moisture levels and not too soaked. Enjoy! Mission accomplished. Now that I've planted 2 plants for you, I'm going to show you how I am watering a vanilla orchid that I planted about 2 weeks ago. As you can see, it's very crispy and dry, ready for water. Since the moss did get a little bit crispy and dehydrated, I'm going to rehydrate it with misting. Misting is a really great way to make sure the moss absorbs the water. So I'm going to start spraying the top of the moss with my sprayer, and as you see, it's going to turn a little bit different colors, kind of like wet moss does. So I'm going to make sure it's wet on the top. I'm going to make sure it's wet on the bottom. If your pot doesn't have drainage holes on the bottom, just make sure you give it a really good soak on the top and try to press down on it so that it really absorbs all the water. I hope you learned something new in this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Peace, love, flower power.